It's time to put the good in your morning. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Today, the Trump Organization now is under a criminal investigation. We'll have the latest and the former president's response.
Game on an early Wednesday morning as we're already getting heavy rainfall that's making its way up from the south. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And it's Wildcat Wednesday. We find out about Broom's Edge grass and why you don't want it on your land. The KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 starts now. Thanks for joining us for the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. I'm Tanya Bach. It's going to be a wet Wednesday as storms move through the 4 states today. Let's go straight to Michael Hayslip for a quick check of the forecast.
And Tanya, we talk about what transpired starting overnight to where we are right now. We've already seen places receive in excess of 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Let's start up in the north and work our way down to the south because this is where we're getting the heaviest rain throughout southeast Kansas. It has progressed out of Crawford County, now in Bourbon County, still got Neosho County. Down by Chanute right there. We haven't had any lightning and we're not looking at anything severe. Our greatest fear is still going to be flooding, and we still have a little bit that's starting to depart out to the northeast of southwest Missouri. Speaking of southwest Missouri, the majority has remained on the dry side. That's great news coming off of the 4 to 6 inches that were picked up in between Monette and Mount Vernon earlier this week. But now we're starting to see the formulation of some rain move its way through northeast Oklahoma and then cross the Arkansas-Missouri state line into Mack County. This rain certainly not as intense as what we're seeing up to the north, but it gives you an idea how everything's going to move from the south to the north through the duration of our Wednesday. 64 in Joplin and in Pittsburgh. Whole bunch of 64s as a matter of fact. That's our popular number. Roll 65 in Nevada and Lamar. Our weather trend has us pushing up into the mid-70s, even with mostly cloudy skies. But the important thing is how much rain we're going to get. Take this line, say from Pittsburgh to Lamar right here, and as you progress to the north through Kansas City, that's where we're going to have our greatest flooding concerns. When I do this, I'm not talking about just that area. I'm talking about everything up here because eventually it is going to make its way into southwest Missouri. Keep all eyes down to the south as it continues to progress through, then becomes more widespread for Wednesday night into Thursday. I want to reiterate the point. We're not looking at any high winds or hail. It's just the amount of rain that we've already received going back to Monday. And additional rainfall headed our way on Wednesday and Thursday. Coming up in just a little bit, Tanya, we'll talk about those flood warnings because we do have the emergence of a new one for the Marmonton River in Vernon County, Missouri.
All right, thanks, Michael. The Trump Organization now faces a criminal investigation. Yesterday, New York Attorney General Letitia James said her office is investigating former President Donald Trump's businesses for potential criminal wrongdoing. At issue is whether the Trump Organization used misleading information to get loans and tax benefits. No comments yet from the Trump Organization, but the former president has called the Attorney General's investigation politically motivated. The North Carolina Sheriff's deputies who shot Andrew Brown Jr. last month will not face criminal charges after a local prosecutor decided their actions were justified. On April 21st, Sheriff's deputies were at Andrew Brown Jr.'s Elizabeth City, North Carolina home to serve a warrant on felony drug charges. The 42-year-old was at the wheel of his car. When the officers approached, Brown tried to drive away and the deputies opened fire. One bullet struck Brown in the back of the head, killing him. The DA said the shooting was justified because he posed a threat to the officers.
Brown's precise speed in attempting to flee and striking Deputy Lunsford is uncertain. But that he drove recklessly and endangered the officers is not uncertain. Therefore, I find that Brown's actions and conduct were indeed dangerous by the time of the shooting.
Brown's family says they hope the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division will now review the case. Prosecutors accuse a Kansas House member of battery against 2 teenage students while working as a substitute teacher. The suspect is Republican State Representative Mark Samsel of Wellsville. A criminal complaint alleges Samsel made physical contact with 2 teenage students and harmed one of them. Authorities are charging Samsel with 3 counts of misdemeanor battery. And a St. Louis homeowner seen on viral video pointing guns at protesters is running for U.S. Senate in Missouri. Mark McCloskey made the announcement on Fox News last night. McCloskey and his wife made national headlines last summer after they brandished weapons at demonstrators marching past their mansion. McCloskey is running for the Senate seat currently held by Republican Roy Blunt, and Blunt announced in March that he will not seek re-election. Commerce Oklahoma City Council decides the future of land once owned by baseball legend Mickey Mantle. A dispute over what to do with the land has been brewing since the dissolution of the board that once owned it. The land then went to the city. Since then, the city received a proposal to buy the land to be the site of a future medical marijuana facility, but that proposal fell through, and the council voted to approve the sale of the land to C3 Community Church. The church plans to build something for the kids in the community on the property.
If we can, work and get that developed where the city has a long-term base of money coming in, is the biggest thing that can happen for this community.
The church will pay $130,000 for the property. Well, as schools in Oklahoma finish up for the school year, the state's Department of Education is setting up feeding sites for kids during summer break. Nearly 1,400 feeding sites across the state will serve kids 2 meals a day free of charge. Kids under 18 years old are eligible, as are people under the age of 21 in state education programs for the mentally and physically disabled. To find a feeding site near you, go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Well, a Joplin man is dead from a head-on crash in Carl Junction, Missouri. It happened on 171 north of Gum Road. Investigators say a car driven by 77-year-old Viola Haig of Carl Junction crossed the center line and hit a car driven by 40-year-old Adam Dillo of Joplin. Dillo was killed. Haig and a passenger in her car were both taken to the hospital with what police call disabling injuries. A Pepsi truck driver lost control on a wet highway in suburban St. Louis on Tuesday, and the truck ended up dangling off an I-44 overpass. Firefighters rescued the driver and there were no injuries. The situation prompted the closure of all lanes of I-44 for 5 hours. It took crews hours to safely get the tractor trailer back on the highway. Well, area law enforcement agencies gathered to honor their brothers and sisters lost in the line of duty. They came together for a special service held at the courthouse lawn in Neosho, Missouri. The Newton County Sheriff's Office chaplains conducted the service.
I know the families and the fallen officers appreciate it as well across the United States. They need to be remembered. Most have given their life in the line of duty, and it means a lot to them, I'm sure, as well as their families and those of us remaining, that's shown to them.
All Newton County Police Departments and city officials received invitations to last night's ceremony. Well, watch a self-driving taxi get confused and flee from humans who were trying to help, not once, but twice. The vehicle, operated in Arizona by autonomous driving service Waymo, appeared to start getting confused when it encountered construction on its route. After a series of abrupt starts and stops, Waymo tech support dispatched a human to the scene, but the car fled as the employee approached and then did it again. Eventually, tech support caught up with the wayward Waymo, and the passenger was on his way. I'm sorry, but that is hilarious. You can't beat that. Well, coming up next, health officials look ahead.
The Joplin Health Board meets for the first time in nearly 2 years. I'm Chris Warner with the latest on the COVID-19 information for the city and what the health department is hoping to focus on in 2021.
And a prosecutor files charges against a Missouri woman for killing her daughter in an apparent suicide pact. The latest on the investigation. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's been nearly 2 years since the Joplin Health Board last met. KOAM's Chris Warner was at yesterday's meeting and has more on the latest COVID information for the city and what the department is focusing on for 2021.
2020 was a challenging year for local health officials, including the Joplin Health Department, which is one of the reasons the health board hasn't met for such a long time.
A lot of our projects and focus groups were kind of shelved during the peak of the COVID response time.
But now COVID efforts are shifting with a focus on getting people vaccinated.
I think vaccination's key. We got to continue to offer vaccine, and then if it's being offered, the only way to make it work is for individuals to actually receive it.
Health Department Director Ryan Talkins says they're also shifting vaccine delivery as the number of people coming to vaccine clinics continues to drop by bringing the vaccine to the people.
So we hope that if the vaccine is available in places where the people are, that there could be a spontaneous component to it where an individual hopefully will see the opportunity and then take advantage of that.
The health department will have a booth at the upcoming Third Thursday in downtown offering vaccines to those at the event. Talkins says now the health department can get back to other key health concerns in the community that haven't seen the attention they need.
We are able to begin to shift some of our focus back onto the coalitions and committees.
In Joplin, Chris Warner, KOAM News.
Talkins says he's hopeful they'll be able to have more vaccine offerings at other events taking place in the community in the near future, including additional Third Thursday events. Well, after fighting the pandemic in Michigan, local health professionals return home. 14 nurses and doctors from Via Christi in Pittsburgh were deployed to Michigan last month. At the time, the state was seeing a spike in cases and a record number of hospitalized children. Since then, cases have decreased and the local health professionals returned home with some lessons.
Very, very, very gracious for the help and to teach, because that world is a little different than my world in a clinic versus working in a hospital in ICU. But it was a great experience.
Michigan's 7-day rolling average for new COVID-19 cases is 1,713. 3 weeks ago, that number was 5,744. Thrilling or terrifying? You will soon be able to take a glass elevator ride up the outside of one of New York's tallest skyscrapers. Summit One Vanderbilt is a brand new attraction at Manhattan's One Vanderbilt Tower. Visitors can ride Ascent, the all-glass elevator 1,200 feet up the outside of the building. Those even more daring can opt for Levitation. That's a collection of transparent glass boxes that jut out of the tower 1,000 feet above Madison Avenue. Ooh! The new attraction is set to open in October.
I'd be down with that. That looks awesome.
Really?
Oh yeah. Got to remember, my fear of heights, I'm fine as long as I'm enclosed.
Oh.
Yeah.
Even if it's like see-through enclosure?
Yeah, no, I'm fine.
Okay.
Absolutely fine. It's just that reoccurring dream I have of high places and nothing.
See, I have an
around
issue
me.
with being enclosed, so I think that would, I don't really have a fear of heights, but it's the enclosure part of it.
Oh, you're the
I'd
opposite.
rather be out there in the open.
Wow, how we were saying,
Yeah.
smart psychology. Tanya and I didn't go to a psychologist school.
No.
If somebody could diagnose our irrational fears that we have with reoccurring dreams.
Because I have a little bit of claustrophobia there, and I'm wondering, is it enclosed on the top as well?
I think so. Well, yeah, you would want it in New York because of weather.
Oh, true. Otherwise, you just fill up with water.
I lost my hat on the Empire State Building one time.
You've been to, oh, I'm jealous. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, somebody in one of the boroughs has a University of Missouri hat that flew off at the observation deck.
I don't care anymore once I heard what it was. Ooh.
Shh, don't tell anyone. Tanya, the Skywatch Storm Tracker has us paying attention to not only our Wednesday morning rain, but also what's formulating in central Oklahoma right now. Let's start with what we've got, especially in Neosho County, spreading into Allen County right here in between Chanute and Iola. That's where we're seeing the heaviest of the rain. And now this pocket has moved into central Bourbon County, just on the other side of Fort Scott. Fort Scott's going to get some of that fallout. It's pretty amazing how it's just ridden the state line in between Kansas and Missouri so far. Not a whole lot of action in southwest Mo, minus what's developed down to the south, as we now see it move across the Arkansas state line into McDonald County and starting to penetrate Newton County up by Neosho as well. And then in Delaware into Ottawa County for northeast Oklahoma, slowly but surely making its way from south to north. Majority of the action still staying down in central Oklahoma. Put on the lightning tracker. Got to go all the way down to OKC to find any of the strikes. Our new development is a flood warning for the Marmonton River right here that lasts until Sunday. Yesterday, we still had the Osage and Little Osage. Those flood warnings were already in effect. The Marmaton has been added this morning. As we'll see, the majority of our water from about Pittsburgh, say to that Pittsburgh-Lamar line right there, all the way up to the north, so that is going to encompass Fort Scott and Nevada. Thunderstorm activity down in the southern portion of Texas, we're not going to worry about that. We got just to worry about how much water we can take on. We're not looking at anything severe. High winds, hail, nothing of that matter. Temperatures very nice for this time of year. Let's get to the future track here. We'll fast forward because we don't have to worry about the severe weather. Just the amount of rain. This is what we're talking about, why that line is really going to have flooding concerns up to the north. And it continues to roll through from Wednesday night all the way into Thursday. Our temperatures remain stable in the high 70s. All the latest watches and warnings that they pop up throughout the morning on the Skywatch weather app. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this. Welcome back, and it is a Wildcat Wednesday. And this morning we're going to learn a little bit about Broom's Edge, the fact that we don't want it, and then we're going to find out how to get rid of it. And that's why we're kind enough to be joined from the K-State Research and Extension Office by Wendy Powell. That's Wendy there on the left, and on the right, Aaron Hibbs. Aaron and Wendy, I want to thank you so much for joining us this morning. I guess I want to start just with the basics. It's called the Broom's Edge Project. Broom's Edge Project. And Wendy, you're heading this up. My first question would be, how do you explain what Broom's Edge is to someone?
So Broom's Edge is this grass that I'm holding here in my hand, and in the background you can see in this fescue hay meadow, it's this golden colored grass. A lot of folks know it as poverty grass. I've heard it called sage grass. Some folks have even called it cheat. But all of those things, poverty grass, that just indicates that it's not a very good grass. So we want to get it under control.
Okay, Wendy, I guess my next question would be, we want to get it out of our pastures. You know, we want the fescue to really be able to take off and thrive, and the Broom's Edge is going to prohibit that a little bit. What is the goal of this project, and what is your final aim as far as what to do with the Broom's Edge?
Yeah, so we've known the poverty grass, the Broom's Edge, is an indicator of low fertility in our soil. And so our studies are going to have a few different layouts of fertilization rates, so we can see exactly what fertilization rate controls the best, or if we just put on a little, it doesn't really do the job that we're looking for. And we've got these sites spread across 4 different counties right now, so it's a pretty big project.
Am I correct in saying a lot of this comes down to soil enrichment, knowing the acidity of your soil, the phosphorus? Is that kind of a starting place for this?
Yes, it is. So the conservation districts can partner with us to help fund these on-farm trials. They can help us get the word out about the field days that we'll be doing this fall, and help bring folks out here to see what we're doing.
Well, let's kind of talk about what happens this fall here after you have these sample sizes and you're able to evaluate the soil, and exactly what the fertilization does to the Broom's Edge. Because then the next great thing about K-State Extension is the dissemination of that information. What is the best way to go about explaining to people that rely so heavily on the pasture and the hay, the best way for them to control the Broom's Edge?
So that's what we're going to have some field days in the fall, and hopefully next year as the project takes off, we'll be doing these field days a couple of times a year. We'll let folks know, hopefully when we have work days out here, when we're doing things, so that folks can just stop by and chat with us if they'd like to. We're also hoping to get this as a study, as a whole research project, to get it published. So it should be a pretty solid information base. So I'm going to have it as just programming in general, so anybody that has questions can call us. But really, this is going to be a boots on the ground. Folks can just come out and take a look around and really see what's going on.
Not to put you on the spot, because I know you are extremely busy, but would it be okay that if we check back in your progress here when fall rolls around, and maybe some preliminary ideas that you and Aaron may have?
Yes, we would love that. We hope to be chatting with you quite a bit.
Excellent. I love to hear that. Wendy Powell, Aaron Hibbs, thank you both for joining us on this Wildcat Wednesday. You guys stay safe out there, and thank you for all that you do when it comes to the entire 4 states.
Thank you.
All right, we'll have more KOAM Morning News for you right after this.
It's time to honor today's 4-state hero. Staff Sergeant Elmer Pettibon served in the United States Army from 1943 to 1946. He fought in the European theater of World War II. His hometown, Deerfield, Missouri. We are proud to salute Elmer Pettibon, our 4-state hero. Mother charged with killing her adult daughter says the two had a suicide pact. The mother survived and is getting medical care outside St. Louis. Robert Townsend has details that could be disturbing to some viewers.
A neighbor says Donna Scuderi and her husband have lived in this typically quiet St. Peter's neighborhood for decades.
So that they got one boy and one girl.
People who live on Joy Drive are stunned to hear that the 69-year-old Scuderi is accused of killing her daughter, 39-year-old Laura Scuderi, before gravely injuring herself. This neighbor so upset she asked us to not show her face or reveal her name.
For me, yes, I heard to believe. Yeah, upset.
Police say they were called to the home on Friday night. Officers found Donna Scuderi in a bathroom, unconscious and bleeding from her neck. They also found her daughter, Laura, dead in an upstairs bedroom. Investigators say the suspect's husband came home and made the initial discoveries. This neighbor says police reviewed her surveillance video looking for possible evidence. She watched officers comb the scene from her front porch.
2 ambulance and about 6-7 police call. Then we say, what's going on, you know?
Investigators say Donna Scuderi drugged and suffocated her daughter, then tried to kill herself. They say from her hospital bed, an unconscious Scuderi woke up on Sunday and told a detective they planned to take their own lives together.
Well, I kind of feel bad. Oh, real bad.
Scuderi is charged with first-degree murder. She's being held on a $200,000 cash-only bond. Another half hour of news and weather is just ahead. Coming up on the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14, we hear from a couple of Joplin tornado survivors about their journey and coping with the loss 10 years later. And more major retailers lift mask requirements amid new CDC guidance. You're watching the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. We'll be right back.
What's your favorite?
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. It's currently 7:32. Let's take a look at today's top stories. St. Louis homeowner seen on a viral video pointing guns at protesters is running for U.S. Senate in Missouri. Mark McCloskey made the announcement on Fox News last night. McCloskey and his wife made national headlines last summer after they brandished weapons at demonstrators marching past their mansion. McCloskey is running for the Senate seat currently held by Republican Roy Blunt. Blunt announced in March that he will not seek re-election. Commerce Oklahoma City Council decides the future of land once owned by baseball legend Mickey Mantle. A dispute over what to do with the land has been brewing since the dissolution of the board that once owned it. The land then went to the city. Since then, the city received a proposal to buy the land to be the site of a future medical marijuana facility. That proposal fell through, and the council voted to approve the sale of the land to C3 Community Church. The church plans to build something for the kids in the community on the property. As schools in Oklahoma finish up for the school year, the state's Department of Education is setting up feeding sites for kids during summer break. Nearly 1,400 feeding sites across the state will serve kids 2 meals a day free of charge. Kids under 18 years old are eligible as people under the age of 21 in state education programs for the mentally and physically disabled. To find a feeding site near you, go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. A Joplin man is dead from a head-on crash in Carl Junction, Missouri. It happened on 171 north of Gum Road. Investigators say a car driven by 77-year-old Viola Haig of Carl Junction crossed the center line and hit a car driven by 40-year-old Adam Dillow of Joplin. Dilla was killed. Haig and a passenger in her car were both taken to the hospital with what police call disabling injuries. Intense rain and winds battered parts of Baton Rouge. More than a foot of rain fell on parts of Louisiana's capital. Officials reported at least 2 people died from the floods across the state. Thousands of people are without power, and emergency crews are working around the clock to help evacuate people trapped in their homes. Officials expect heavy rain to continue for the next several days.
You know, we talk about flooding concerns here in the 4 states. Luckily, nothing like that. But we are picking up heavy Wednesday morning rain, Tanya, throughout portions of Bourbon County and Allen County. We haven't had any lightning associated with it. And now we're beginning to break in the central. But as we go down to the south, we've got additional rainfall coming in through northeast Oklahoma and Delaware and Ottawa County, and now making its way from McDonald County right into Newton County as well. Temperatures very comfortable when you walk outside, low to mid 60s, and we'll actually make it up into the mid 70s once again today. Going to have that humid feeling much like it did yesterday. Future tracks, the important part is everything moves from south to north. Take a line right there about from, say, let's go Pittsburgh, diagonal Lamar. Everything moves up. Flooding concerns north of that because it's going to last all the way from tonight into tomorrow. Look at that line that it just likes to take. Just straight up south to north. Now, flooding is going to be the main concern. Not going to have to worry about high winds or hail or anything like that. But we can finally begin to taper off by the time we get to Friday. We'll be back with more KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
They say when you
On the KOAM News Now Facebook page and our morning Insta polls. Streaming wars, they're not dying down anytime soon. As a new report predicts, the average American is going to have 5+ streaming sites available to them by the year 2024. So our question to you is simply, how many streaming services do you use? And this has been very interesting all morning long, because on one side, we've got 41% of you that say 0, don't use a streaming site. However, in second place, it's the exact opposite. 23% of you are already at 5+. You can make your voice heard by going to komnewsnow.com/vote. Tanya?
Well, area students got a history lesson at the site of a Civil War battle. The Sherwood Raider Farm Civil War Park in Jasper County, Missouri, hosted a free event to educate students and the public about a battle that happened there in 1863. Yesterday's event was special because May 18th is the anniversary of that battle.
I think so many people don't realize how much history occurred in this very region. In fact, many people don't realize that Missouri was the 3rd most contested state during the Civil War. Only Virginia and Tennessee had more battles than we did.
During the battle in 1863, 18 Union soldiers from Fort Gibson in Baxter Springs, Kansas, died in the fighting. Charitable organizations gathered in Joplin for an event about addressing poverty. The True Charity Summit was at Joplin's Forest Park Church. Organizers say it featured leading voices in charity in the U.S. to share their experience in combating poverty in their communities.
We've got this summit where we've invited charity workers, and they're coming from all over, and we've got these national speakers who are really trying to address these issues at the local level, and we're excited to share some maybe some unconventional ways, or maybe there are old ways that need to be revisited and reapplied to address these issues more effectively.
The True Charity Summit will continue today. We'll be right back. More retailers are dropping mask mandates. Macy's is no longer requiring and rather recommends vaccinated customers wear face coverings in stores, except where local laws make it mandatory. Best Buy, Lowe's, Home Depot, and BJ's all made similar changes to their mask policies. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention recently announced vaccinated people do not need to wear a mask indoors, only in crowded areas. Since the statement, many stores have loosened mask rules, including Trader Joe's, Walmart, Costco, and Publix. Amazon is extending its ban on police use of its facial recognition technology. The ban went into effect about a year ago. The company did not give a new timeline for how long it will remain in place this time. Civil rights groups are concerned the technology will be misused or abused. Last June, Amazon said it hoped Congress would pass laws to guide appropriate use of the technology. Ford previewed its new electric F-150 Lightning with the help of President Biden. He was at the company's Dearborn, Michigan plant to promote his jobs plan, which includes money for electric vehicles. The president got behind the wheel of the pickup and floored it. Ford will officially debut the Lightning later today. Italian supercar maker Lamborghini recently shocked the exotic car world with the announcement that every Lamborghini will have an electric motor by 2024. But before petrol performance purists cry, "Say it ain't so, Lambo," fear not, every model will simply be a plug-in hybrid, keeping the feel and sound of Lamborghini's high-performance engines. Lamborghini is investing nearly $2 billion in the project and is aiming to reduce carbon emissions of its cars by 50%. We'll be right back with more after this, but first let's take a look at the market prices before the opening bell. As we approach the 10th anniversary of the Joplin tornado, for some, May 22nd, 2011 will seem like a distant memory. But for survivors and those directly impacted, it's a reminder of one of the worst days of their lives. KOAM's Zach Dodge has how some of them have learned to live with the scars. Now, warning, some of the content we're about to show may be disturbing to some viewers.
Mason Lillard remembers it like it was yesterday.
We get a phone call from my aunt that said, you guys need to take shelter now. There's a tornado over Joplin. We were in the back seat and we were praying.
She and her cousin Lage were with their grandpa making what was supposed to be a quick stop at Home Depot. She remembers being sucked into the tornado in the back seat of a 1-ton pickup.
I had a 1-inch piece of angle iron go through my right shoulder, break 7 ribs, puncture my lower lung, and come out my back, a 1/4 inch away from my spine, a 1/4 inch away from my liver. He was sucked out of the truck.
My skull split open, so somebody came and held the purse over my head.
Mason needed multiple surgeries, and Lage spent a full year in the hospital, then had to go through rehab. They've both made great strides physically, but the emotional scars remain.
I would have panic attacks, or to the point that if it was raining or whatever, I would not even get in the car.
After a few years, she learned that music helped, helping her tune out what was happening. Now, her dog helps calm that anxiety.
I now can drive if it's storming myself, which is kind of a big overstep from being in a vehicle during the tornado.
For Liz Easton, the tornado anniversary reminds her of what she lost.
I get a little tearful because we lost some really good friends. My daughter, she lost a lot of things, and everyone deals with it differently, but to some it was like a rape. Something took control over them and took something from them. And so we've had a long journey with that.
She says her family has moved past the pain, focusing on the positives that came out of the tragic event and how far the community has come since. But if you haven't come to that point, it doesn't mean you're broken.
Everyone recovers at their pace. There is no shame in something still bothering you after 2 years, 4 years, 10 years. That's okay.
Psychologist Charles Doyle explains anniversaries, memorials, storms, and even weather forecasts can bring back memories from the past trauma. For those who have learned to live with the scars, like Lillard and Easton, it's a reminder of how far they've come instead of just being painful. And he explains that everyone can get to that point.
We can't really recover if we don't engage those things and begin to deal with them and reprocess them and make them to have a healthier meaning for us. And for some, that might mean really engaging it purposefully. That might mean going to a memorial service, or go to a gravesite, or go to the property site where you were. Or it might mean that you read some things about it or journal about it, and just sort of make it better in your own heart and your own mind.
Lillard and Easton both say what helps them is focusing on the positives and continuing to push forward.
The journey has gone on, And I wouldn't want to do it again, but I appreciate what we've taken from it.
You're not alone, and don't be afraid, because it's not fully your battle. It's also God's battle of what He wants to do for you.
In Joplin, Zach Dodge, KOAM News.
And we'll have more tips from Dr. Doyle on ways to cope with past trauma on our website. That's at koamnewsnow.com. Most importantly, if you are still struggling, don't feel ashamed to reach out to someone for help. Well, some still struggle with the scars of the 2011 tornado. Joplin emergency officials are focused on what people might forget. In the years since the disaster, officials like Jasper County Emergency Management Director Keith Stammer have worked on policies and programs to prevent the worst from happening again. But as the years wear on, Stammer says it gets harder to make sure people are aware of those programs.
Every year we get a little farther away from the Joplin tornado. Every year we have a little less interest in our storm programs and in our safety programs. And so we have to constantly promote storm safety, just to remind people what has happened to us.
The addition of public storm shelters is just one of the changes made by the city and other local officials to enhance safety during severe weather. You can find a list of those shelters on our website. Well, tonight at 6, we continue our countdown to the tornado anniversary. We have an update on KCU construction and a look at how the Mercy temporary location influenced the construction of the new medical school.
Yeah, Tanya, I was thinking about it from historical context. I realized when I woke up this morning, today was May 19th. 3 days away from the 2011 tornado. And because we've been concentrating rightly so much on this and the way people have coped with it, the way Joplin's rebuilt, the way everybody came together and remembering those that we lost. We're 1 day removed from the 1925 tornado outbreak. That at that point in time was the deadliest on record and also encompassed Joplin, Missouri.
Oh, wow.
And the reason I bring that up, here, let me transition. The reason I bring that up is because that was 1925. We don't have the weather technology. We don't have people like Doug. In 1925, they didn't have people like Doug to use that technology. They didn't have people like Keith Stammer that now have one goal in life: to keep people safe. So Doug, Keith, all you emergency people, all you meteorologists.
We thank you.
Yeah, we come a long way. But yeah, let's remember those henceforth. All right, live look outside of Television City. Every now and then we get a peek of blue sky. Let's put everybody's fears to rest. Our biggest thing going into the weekend is going to be flooding. That's what we're looking at right now. Down to the south, we are generating a whole bunch of rain throughout central Oklahoma. As far as that's if you're leaving here in a little bit, I want you to be apprised of that situation. If you're leaving right now, let's take a look at what exactly we're getting in the northern portion of the 4 states as it continues to push from south to north. Got some heavy rain right there around Mound City, moving off to the northeast of Iola. We haven't had any lightning, and really everything in this portion of southwest Missouri has remained relatively calm. A little bit's pushed up through Mack County into Newton County. Now we're seeing it make its way from Delaware and Ottawa, from Grove to Miami, and then back into the southern portion of Cherokee County, so headed toward Columbus right now as well. For those of you in that Columbus area, it's not going to be as hard as what you got earlier this morning. Our temperature is comfortable, mid-60s for the most part, and we'll be able to make it up into the mid-70s here later on. The important aspect is what future track holds for us, because as it pushes up through the afternoon, there's a spotty little break every now and then, but it's going to be that line right here working to the north where we're going to have the majority of our flooding concerns, and then we're going to pick back up tonight into Thursday. 7-day forecast. We'll finally be able to taper off the rain Thursday night and head into the weekend with those chances dipping down to 20%. We'll be back and wrap up this edition of the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14 right after this.
Welcome back to the KOAM Morning News on Fox 14. Here's what's happening today. The North Carolina Sheriff's deputies who fatally shot Andrew Brown Jr. will not face criminal charges. The district attorney says the officers' actions were justified because they were confronting a suspect who had access to a potentially deadly weapon, his car. Brown's family is calling on the Justice Department to review the case. The conflict between Israel and Hamas continues to escalate despite worldwide calls for a ceasefire. The violence has now spread from the Gaza Strip into the West Bank. At least 216 Palestinians have been killed in the fighting that began last week, along with 12 Israelis. And the president of the Arizona State Senate says Maricopa County's recount of the 2020 election will proceed over the objections of both Republicans and Democrats. She said the audit is necessary to answer lingering questions about the vote. Let's check in with Michael with a final look at your forecast.
Here's a final glance at the Skywatch Storm Tracker with the rain progressing from south to north, and we're just going to keep on rolling up here from Oklahoma. Been able to stay out of the threat of anything severe as far as lightning goes, hail, high wind. Our greatest threat is going to be flooding with additional inch and a half today, and rain chances persisting through the weekend.
All right. Stay dry out there. Do your best.
Yeah. Hey, I want everybody to have a great, safe morning, and thank you for letting us put the good in your morning. We'll be back with more news and weather when we see you at noon.
Have a great morning and an even better day.